So is it more than potentially a cultural war? I mean, we're in the midst of a cultural war at the moment, but is it more like a cultural war in that there are these fundamental differences? So Ethereum is moving apparently to proof of stake, which is considered, let's say, a more centralizing force. And Ethereum did have a pre-mine, which if you discuss or read up on the ethics of money production, a pre-mine is arguably slightly, not slightly, but less ethical. Is it because Bitcoin tends to be move slow, don't break things, where Ethereum is move fast, break things? So is it just a set of cultural differences about how people consider money and cryptocurrencies?
Well, that's the claim. There's a claim that it's a set of cultural differences, but I would posit that it's fake because Bitcoin maximalists start companies, right? Which as they should, and they start businesses. Those businesses sell equity. They create equity. They give the equity to the founders when the businesses started, and then they sell some of the equity to early seed investors. That's a pre-mine.
But equity is different from money. When you're making the claim that Ethereum is ultrasound money, that's very different from equity and an investment. Right. I don't like that analogy.
Well, so I think that Ethereum is not an ultrasound money. I know that some people say that it is. I think they're wrong. And I would say that Ethereum is very similar to an equity. I know that's, obviously a lot of people in the Bitcoin camp are saying, hey, Ether is a security. If you believe that, like, why is it a security, right? Why is Ether a security and Bitcoin not? Well, because Ether has some similarity to some sort of, maybe not equity, but it certainly tries to do revenue share with holders of Ether. And certainly the way it was sold originally is kind of similar to an equity sale. So, I think Bitcoin maximalists recognize the similarity for sure. So I would say, yeah, that's what it is. Now, I don't particularly care about American regulations on securities. That's not my problem. If Americans want to support the SEC, that's, I'm not going to intervene in that. But as a non-American, I don't particularly care. The founders who create those coins don't particularly care if they're not Americans. And if Americans want to stay out of this entire thing, okay, they can stay out. I don't know why it is Bitcoin maximalists who are choosing to promote the idea of the SEC saving the market, but sure, you can do that. If American Bitcoin maximalists want to do that, that's their prerogative. That's none of my business. But for the rest of the world, they seem to be okay with a different set of regulations, So I don't see anything wrong with someone issuing a token and saying, yeah, I'm going to use this token to share my share revenue with my investors. I think that's fine. Some of them scam. That's not fine. But if you don't scam, I don't see the problem.
So there'll be people who won't even like the fact we're having this conversation.
For sure.
And they won't like the fact that we're having it on what is considered a Bitcoin podcast. Certainly won't. It happened recently. I had Seth of Privacy on and we discussed Monero.
Yeah.
And some of the comments are like, oh, why don't you launch what Monero did? Or you're a shitcoin, or is this a shitcoin podcast now? So it immediately comes out. And that's fine. I understand that. So some people won't like the fact that we're having this conversation. I do. You like it, don't you?
I like it too.
For sure. I think it's an important conversation.
Yeah, no, I think it's important because firstly, for me, just on a personal level, is to understand what Bitcoin maximalists, what their goal is. Do I align with it? Therefore, how do I support it? And what's the purpose and the goal? And therefore, what are the actions I can do to help support and make Bitcoin stronger? Yeah. So it's an important conversation to have. And I certainly haven't agreed with you on a few things through this. But there will be some people who just don't like the fact the conversation's happening. They're listening. What would you actually say to them?
I think, as you say, I think we agree on most things. I think that the concept of a free market and allowing people to innovate, I think it's things we agree upon. I would say take a look at what changed in the last 2-3 years in the crypto space. I think that a lot of the defensiveness stems from how, in the last bull market in 2018 or whatever, it was all scams. It was everything, 100% of it, almost, maybe except for Ethereum itself, but everything that Ethereum did for sure was a scam. And they just assume that it's the same this time. To a certain degree, it is the same, but not 100% of it. So I think if you take a look, I threw out some names, I threw out some names about exchange coins, about lending protocols on Ethereum. I think those are very reasonable services that offer something that is valuable to their users. Their users don't have to use ETH. They can use WBTC, which is pegged to Bitcoin, just like Liquid is pegged to Bitcoin. It's the same thing. It's a real service that is valuable. Like people, I know a lot of people who own some Bitcoin want to take a loan against the Bitcoin, want to take $1 loan against their Bitcoin, keep holding the Bitcoin, not sell it, and take $1 loan. These lending protocols allow you to do that without KYC, without censorship. You can do it anywhere in the world. I think that's a real benefit. I think that's good. I don't think we need to hate on that.
What are the risks, though, in the inherent risks in those platforms? Again, bringing it back to my world of being kind of a bit of an idiot. Where could I go wrong wrapping some BTC and taking out a loan? What could I? So
if you wrap BTC, then that means you give up custody of your Bitcoin. Okay. You give it to, in that case, BitGo. I think BitGo is a very established custodian, but you definitely give it to BitGo or one of their partners. I don't know exactly which one it will be. And you get a token that represents that deposit. Now, that's very similar to depositing, on BlockFi, on Bitfinex, on Square, you make a deposit of the Bitcoin, you no longer have custody, and you get a service. The difference is you get the service in a way that is transparent, auditable, and permissionless. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need to provide any identity information. So I think that's an improvement. Is it fantastic? No. There are drawbacks, there are risks. Main risks would be either the protocol itself gets hacked, or maybe something happens to BitGo and they lose their Bitcoins. That's possible too. But those things are transparent. You can at least track them. You can see where the Bitcoins are, the real BTC is. You can see it on the Bitcoin blockchain. You can see on the Ethereum blockchain that the loan is backed. You can see that there weren't $500 million that went out to 3 Arrows Capital and aren't accounted for. You can see that. So you don't need to trust anyone on that. There is some trust involved. There is some risk involved. But I would say it's less risk than giving your money to BlockFi and taking a loan. Just because it's more transparent. Not because I don't trust BlockFi. Not because I don't it's just transparent. So I think that has value. Now, if the only reason you don't like that product is because it's built on Ethereum or because the founders chose to incentivize investment using a token instead of equity, then I would say that's not a good reason. I think if the service is valuable, if it solves the problems, the Bitcoiners are talking about, Bitcoiners want to be able to do those things without KYC. Those are things we care about. So it solves them. Doesn't solve them perfectly, but it's better than what we had before. If the only reason you don't like it is because it uses Ethereum behind the scenes or because the founder issued a token, don't buy the token. You don't need to buy the token. Don't use it. Just take a loan. If you only don't like it because there is an existence of a token somewhere, that's very odd to me. I don't understand that.
So what do you think the purpose then of Bitcoin maximalism is? Because it's certainly the things I would put in the bucket have changed in the since let's say late 2016, early 2017. So about 5.5 years, that I've been kind of more heavily involved. Mm-hmm. There's certainly been a change, and the dynamics have changed. And there seem to be, for me, there's monetary maximalism, there's protocol maximalism, but there's become this whole kind of cultural movement around the almost like fiat world, fiat art, fiat food. And I think Bitcoin has been right on a lot of those things. Mm-hmm. And I certainly think there's been misinformation with regards to food over the years. I certainly think central planners, again, a lot wrong. It's a lot of that's being exposed. But where do you think the important parts are for you as a Bitcoiner? Not for them, for you as a Bitcoiner. What do you think are the things that Bitcoiners and Bitcoin maximalists could be doing or should be doing, which are important?
I think that the most important thing is to understand the problems that people have in the world today and try to see or show how Bitcoin fixes those problems. I don't think that, I don't think a lot of people feel like they have a problem with their food and that Bitcoin solves the problems that they have with their food, right? I'm not saying that the dietary choices of Bitcoin maximalists are wrong. Maybe they're scientifically right, but I don't think that this is the answers that people are looking for right now in the world.
I'm just going to jump in there. I'm not sure it's that it's the answer they're looking for. I think perhaps they're things that they find they weren't aware of before. It's definitely influenced me.
It influenced me too, yeah. I mean, it literally changed my diet. Bitcoin maximalists literally changed my diet, and I've been doing better for that. But that's that's a completely cultural thing and isn't relevant to Bitcoin. It worked for me, but I also can appreciate that other people have other needs and other interests, and I don't think it will work for them. I'm a, I'm a very private guy. I know people wouldn't guess, but I consider myself very shy. I consider myself very, I know.
You're not fucking shy.
I know. But that's how I see myself. I'm an introvert. I know it doesn't look like it, but I consider myself an introvert. So those
in the meat space.
Yeah.
You're not an introvert on Twitter.
No, of course, I know. And that's exactly the thing, So I have this personality where when people recommend a diet on Twitter, I'm very likely to look into that and maybe find that it's useful for me. But that's a unique personality. I don't think that most people are like that. I don't think that most people are seeking diet advice on Bitcoin, even if on Bitcoin Twitter, even if it's good. So what can we as Bitcoiners do? I think for the masses, for most of the world, I think that, for example, if we see that people are, for whatever reason, super interested in Dogecoin and in NFTs, even if we find those laughable, I think it would make sense to reach out to those people and say, hey, did you make some money on JPEGs? Great for you. Happy for you. Good job. Now, would you consider, now that you have money, before you were broke, now you have money, would you consider maybe taking 5% of it and storing it in Bitcoin long term instead of holding it in apes, and have that discussion about, hey, you know what? You did great. Good job.
Dan Hell says exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And I think those are, and that's in this point in time, right? In this point in time, culture seems to be fascinated with NFTs. Maybe in 2 years they won't be, and they will be fascinated with something else. And I think Bitcoiners should be there too. Instead of saying, hey, you guys are idiots and you're going to regret it in 4 years, how does that help anyone? That's probably true, but how is that helpful? What I would like is to see, see those people. Let's say that we agree that NFTs will go to zero and Dogecoin will go to zero. I don't actually think that, but let's say that we believe that. Wouldn't it be great if they held 5% of their portfolio in Bitcoin? So when everything else goes to zero, now they're Bitcoiners. They have some Bitcoin, everything else is zero. So they have the 5% is now 100%.
So they're a maximalist.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be good though? Wouldn't that be good for Bitcoin? So instead, we're calling them stupid so that 2 years from now, we can tell them, I told you so. I don't see how that's helpful. I really don't. And those are the things that I think we should be doing. I think we should accept that the world is changing. I think maybe because of Bitcoin inflexibility, which is good for Bitcoin, I think maybe we have this mindset that nothing in the world needs to change, nothing in the path of the world needs to change. So I think a lot of Bitcoiners believe that, or a lot of Bitcoin maximalists believe that maybe states will disappear or maybe will change substantially. But that's kind of a predetermined path that they believe in. And I think a lot of people in the Bitcoin maximalist world do not see a need to update their view of that path. So yes, there is a path and the world will change, but the path is predetermined. It's not going to change based on what mere humans are doing. And I think that's wrong. The world is changing, and as the world changes, you need to update your views of how the future is going to look like. So, because it's not predetermined, and path dependency is a thing. So I think we need to look at those things, and I think we need to understand what people are looking for now, and we need to accept that in 2 years they'll probably be into other things, and we should be there. We should always be there. We should understand their motivations. Why is it that they're interested in Shiba Inu and not in Bitcoin? There's a reason. Doesn't mean we need to change Bitcoin to be more like Shiba Inu, but we need to understand where people are coming from.